Hello, my name is Chris Fernandez. Today I'm just going to be going over a little bit how to test the automotive network using BreakingPoint. So this topic has been coming up in a few customer calls, and I'd like to just show how to um, what kind of tests that you can do using the breaking point, right? So the breaking point is our layer 4 through 7 application tester in terms of usually used for performance testing of gateways and firewalls and etc. The configuration that I have here is actually a VM. So right now I only have ports there back to back. So this is my ESXi host, and I'm using two virtual uh, machines here. One for the module itself, which is the GUI that you see, and the other is for the controller. It's for the module. That's sorry. So the controller is the main brain of BreakingPoint, where BreakingPoint is running. So we are running BreakingPoint VE, and the module is where the test ports are. So if you look at my module here, I have two real ports. They're connected back to back. So I have two 25 gig ports. They're connected back to back, just to create like how you get from the VM world to physical layer, and so on. But in terms of breaking point itself, and for this particular test, let's start here from the beginning. The first thing you got to do is to create a network that you're going to be using. So in our case here, we're just using we're going to be simulating the both ends of the network that we can see. When we're talking about a car or a vehicle network, we're talking about for this demo, it's just about the diagnostics IPs, right? So we have a tester tool that is going to be connecting to our gateway, and then the gateway will do the internal routing, if you want to call it routing itself, to all the ECUs to grab the data and so on. For this particular test, we don't have a DUT here, so we have two ports there back to back. So I'm just going to be configuring two IP addresses, so the tester IP and the gateway IP, and I'm going to simulate the flow. In the case or of a real DOT, instead of the application simulator, the application simulator is a two-arm test where I am the tester and the server itself or the gateway. We would use the client simulation, which is kind of similar, but uses different terminology, right? So the application simulator, I'm just using one application and one flow. So it's very similar to the client side, the client simulation, which is down here. So by looking at this, so I'm gonna let me just go over here to the client for the topology itself. The topology itself is very simple. It's a switch. I'm configuring it as a switch with two interfaces here. This is my tester tool, the interface one. So I give it an IP address, which is 192.168.110, and a gateway, in my case here, the server side, which is .20. They're on the same network, so there's no really routing, right? So they are part of the same network here. Now so this is my topology that I'm running for my test. So after you determine the topology here, you go into the test that you're going to be using. So go back, and then you add the test. So my test is an application simulator, and I'm using a a profile that I created. So I created this profile here that's going to run for 50 seconds, and it's going to be 5 seconds of waiting time, and then you're going to open and close sessions for 30 seconds and close the test, right? So it's very simple. The data rate, I put it in limited here. It doesn't really matter. We're not doing performance testing. I'm simulating the superflow, and those are all the attributes for the superflow itself. It's very low speed. We're not doing anything big here, but we are kind of restricting how many flows per second and so on. That's how we're doing the data rate here. We're not really tied up to a how fast the interface does, right? So I'm doing the restriction here is per flow. So I'm doing 5 flows per second here, maximum super flows per second. So I'm restricting how much traffic I'm going to be sending in that. In terms of the flow itself, let me go into my application, and then I created this super flow here. And let's take a look at this. So there's, for the protocol, we're doing a diagnostic IP over IP. So the first time here is, as you can see here, it's using the 13,400,000 UDP source and destination, and it's over UDP, but that's just for the first 2 flows here, right? For the identification and the request and the response here when they first start to establish the connection. And then after they establish the connection, they switch it over to a TCP, which is this one down here. And you can see here now that this one here has the destination for, but it's now using TCP. So this is the flow, the 2 flows that I'm using here. And then the actions inside the flows, that's what you see down here. You see the both vehicle identification, right? So that's the first step of the process when you're trying to establish a connection. So under here you have things like you're trying to discover, right? So this is a broadcast message here that's being sent out. So it's a broadcast over UDP. And then after that, you get the routing activation that's over TCP. And then after that, you're gonna see us sending UDS messages here, right? So those are all that's all that you're gonna see on the flow. So we're gonna run the test and look at the results. But all of these here are configurable. Sorry, you can send anything that you want in actually real stuff here. So we can actually load real data here if you really want to, and send this traffic any way we want. Can modify anything that we want, and we can actually create our own actions if we need to, and we can add stuff like if this doesn't happen, exit, or if you want to make loops inside here, you can. But for now, that's all I'm gonna do. So I'm gonna go back here. Now I have 2 ports attached, so I'm just going to save and run. So this is going to run for only 50 seconds, so it's pretty fast. And then we can take a look at the results and what does it show, right? So as you can see here, this is the concurrent flows. You can see 1 flow here, and then after 5 seconds, it starts going a little bit faster. But it's just going to open and close. So it's going to be doing that, the flow that we looked at over and over again. Establishing TCP, sending those messages and closing, and it's going to be having like 5 flows max per second and at a time. So I'm going to let it continue here. This type of stats here that you see the stats here, the TCP, how many got connection and so on. So now the test is pretty much over at this point. The test is over. I'm just going to wait for it to finish it off, and then we can look at the results. So the test finished. I'm gonna go back here, and what I'm gonna do, we're gonna export the results from the port number 1, which in this case is our server side, and we're gonna do an export and take a look at the test. What does it look like? So I'm gonna save this, and I'm gonna open. I hope you can see my screen here. So as you can see here in the beginning, my client, right? So that's my 10, sends out a vehicle identification request message, which is a UDP message, UDP type of message with the header information in here. And then my client, or my server side, or my gateway in this point, is going to send out a response, right? And the response has information about itself, about the gateway itself, and that's what the client we're going to use to create a TCP connection. So you can see the TCP SYN, SYNAC, and ACK here, the 3 handshake for the TCP, and then after that it creates it sends out a a routing activation request, and then you see the response here. You see the request tester here, and then it creates the messages for UDS, right? So you can see those here, and requesting the data and sending the data back. And then after a while, after all of this is done, it's done here. And then you can see here FINAC closing that connection here, and then you can see another connection being then you're going to see the loop going back again, right? So this connection here has been sent out and then established since SYNAC and NAC, and then routing authentication and so on. So this is what we can do currently using BreakingPoint, and in this case here I'm using BreakingPoint V, so it can be run on any server. And for the tests that we're doing, it's pretty low speed. It's not much. It's I think it's 5 meg right now, but we can go up depending on what your requirements are. Anyway, so this is all I want to show. If you have any questions about this, if you want to see any of those messages here, please let me know. We can create another call and go over this. All right. Thanks. Bye.